The story begins when a bright light suddenly erupted. The MC complained inwardly that it was so bright he could not open his eyes and could not even breathe properly. The MC's name was Shuu Abe. He was born on January 7th, was 23 years old, single, and had never had a girlfriend. His hometown was Gyuda in Saitama Prefecture, and he was currently living in Kaname Town. He had started his first job in the sales department of a web advertising company, and he would soon complete his first year. However, one thought lingered in his mind. What was he supposed to be doing? At that moment, he recalled that he must have been admitted to the hospital after being a complete dumbass. He had gotten drunk, fallen off a balcony, and broken his bones. He must have caused a lot of trouble for the company too, and he wondered if he might be fired. Slowly, Shuu opened his eyes and found himself in an unfamiliar place. His eyes widened in shock when he realized that this was not a hospital room. He had no idea where he was or what had happened. When he tried moving his hand, some sticky substance prevented his movement. He reacted in shock when he saw that it was covering his whole body. Furious, he pulled the sticky substance away from his body, wondering what these super weird black strings were and why they were so creepy. He also wondered why he was completely wrapped in this thing. But suddenly he noticed that his hands could move and that his legs felt as good as new. More importantly, he realized that he was completely naked. Shuu was completely puzzled as he wondered what was going on. From a distance, he saw a small crack. Without hesitation, he walked toward it and peeked through the hole, finding a pile of stones inside. However, below was a small entrance. Without a second thought, he crawled inside and was surprised by what he saw. It was a metro. Shuu remarked to himself that it was enormous and wondered how old this subway was. More importantly, he had no idea where the hell he was. Shuu groaned in frustration, admitting to himself that the situation was completely beyond his understanding. He wished that someone could help him. However, he quickly warned himself that he might get arrested if he went in front of people while completely naked. Nobody would help him under those circumstances, so he decided that he had better get dressed before finding someone. Just then he heard someone approaching. Shuu panicked as he realized that his situation was really bad. He could not get in front of people like this at all. But when he turned around, what he saw was a massive beast ready to devour him. Shuu stood frozen as he internally questioned how a wolf could possibly be here in Tokyo. That should have been impossible. He wondered whether he was dreaming or whether the creature was some kind of robot or CGI. He desperately wished that someone would wake him up. At that moment, the wolf lunged at him while Shuu fell to the ground and desperately tried to make the wolf go away. Before he could finish, however, the wolf had already bitten his arm and was hungrily chewing it. Blood sprayed into the air as Shuu screamed in agony. Staring at the wolf, he began to tremble and cursed inwardly, convinced that he was going to die. He felt as though he had already suffered enough and desperately wanted a break from everything happening to him. Shuu curled up defensively once again as the wolf lunged toward him. Inside his mind, he desperately screamed that he did not want to die. But then nothing happened. Slowly, Shuu opened his eyes. What he saw left him frozen in shock. A sword had emerged directly from the palm of his hand, piercing straight through the wolf's head and killing it instantly. Blood dripped from the blade as Shuu pulled it free from the beast's skull. Completely exhausted, he collapsed onto the ground. Staring blankly at his hand, Shuu tried to process what had happened. He was certain that he had seen a sword coming out of his palm. He wondered if it had been a dream, but when he looked at the now-dead wolf, he knew that it had not been. Shuu complained internally that he was so hungry he wanted to eat something immediately. The instant that thought crossed his mind, his eyes unconsciously drifted toward the dead wolf. Shuu quickly snapped himself out of it and reflected on everything that had happened to him. He had never been such a strong person, yet this was reality. Having an empty stomach was hell, and even though he had killed the beast, he could not prepare a meal for himself. There was no pond or source of fire around. His hands were beginning to tremble. With no other choice, Shuu decided that at this rate he would even eat raw meat. All of a sudden, someone spoke, asking if he was not going to squeak the sporangium. Hearing that, Shuu stopped and looked around for the source of the voice. When he could not find anyone else, the voice spoke again, and Shuu finally spotted its source. A small squirrel greeted him and addressed him as Mr. Hunter, asking if Shuu could please let him squeak it too. However, Shuu did not respond immediately because his brain was still trying to process everything he had just witnessed. Then suddenly, he screamed at the top of his lungs after realizing that the squirrel was actually talking. In the next instant, the squirrel punched him straight in the face and angrily scolded him for speaking so loudly, warning that Shuu would attract the other beasts there too. The squirrel continued rambling non-stop, complaining that hunters were always carving out metro beast sporangiums. He explained that he lived on the leftovers killed by those hunters. After that, he urged Shuu to grow a pair and start extracting the ghost wolf already. The squirrel instructed him to begin by cutting open the belly. Although hesitant, Shuu nervously stabbed into the wolf's corpse. The squirrel immediately urged him to keep going. Shuu cursed under his breath and complained that the skin was very thick. The squirrel explained that he did not have to open the ribs because the sporangium was in the lower belly. The moment Shuu saw the wolf's inside spill out, disgust twisted across his face. Ignoring his reaction entirely, the squirrel informed him that there would be something ball-like deep inside. Shuu reached into the corpse, grabbed one of the organs, and asked if that was what the squirrel meant. But suddenly, a distant roar echoed through the area. The squirrel instantly panicked and began sprinting away, warning that some other beasts were coming in fast. Shuu flinched in alarm and, without wasting another second, hurried after the squirrel. As Shuu returned to the area where he had originally been, he noted to himself that they had ended up having to come back there after all. The squirrel sighed in relief and commented that it was a good hideout because those big beasts would not be able to come through there. He then suggested that perhaps the hole had appeared because of the metro fluctuations from the previous day. Shuu was confused by the mention of metro fluctuations. The squirrel explained that he had been flying down there a while ago. He then wondered what exactly this place was. The squirrel told Shuu that he would explain later, and that, for now, they should eat the sporangium. Hearing that, Shuu stared at the organ in his hand and hesitated at the squirrel's suggestion to eat it raw. He questioned whether it was really a body organ and felt extremely unwilling to eat it like that. The squirrel furiously scolded him, warning that if Shuu did not eat it quickly, it would rot. He continued calling Shuu a dumbass for hesitating. Shuu wondered why the squirrel needed to curse at him so much. Having no other choice, he finally took a bite. He quickly swallowed it before collapsing to the ground in disgust. Suddenly, a shock surged through his entire body, causing him to freeze. Shuu immediately demanded to know what had just happened. The squirrel explained that he had leveled up. Shuu was confused by the concept of leveling up, so the squirrel explained that it meant his body's kinshur had expanded. The squirrel then remarked that despite being a citizen of Itakuri, Shuu was even dumber than he was. Puzzled, Shuu wondered about what the squirrel had said concerning his body's kinshur, growth, prohibition, kinshur, and mycelium. He admitted that he did not understand anything and that he was not even a hunter, just a regular employee. The squirrel repeated the word employee and remarked that it sounded like a lame name. Shuu quickly corrected him by stating that his name was Shuu Abe. At that exact moment, another sudden shock surged through the squirrel's body. Immediately afterward, the squirrel celebrated excitedly upon realizing that he had leveled up too. Shuu was surprised to discover that even squirrels had that leveling up system. The squirrel smugly revealed that he was not a squirrel at all but a magical beast, specifically the most famous carbuncle in the world. He had simply been using the word squeak repeatedly in his sentences. The squirrel then handed the remaining organ back to Shuu, explaining that he was already full and that Shuu should eat the rest of it. Shuu wondered whether squirrels were not supposed to eat grass, but the moment he swallowed the organ, another shock surged through his body. Seeing that, the squirrel remarked that for Shuu to level up twice like that, he must have been a really weak human. Sighing heavily, Shuu admitted that he was still weak. He had only woken up a while ago and had no clue where he was now. He then called out to the squirrel, who was busy licking his fingers. The squirrel turned toward him and pointed out that he had a name too. His name was Tamiko. Shuu apologized to the squirrel and began calling him Tamiko before asking directly where they were now and what year it was. Tamiko explained that they were currently at Otsuka Metro, approximately 50 levels deep underground. He did not know what year it was, but according to the Tokyo calendar, it should be around year 102. Confused, Shuu wondered what Tamiko meant by the Tokyo calendar. Tamiko revealed that the metro had been flooded 102 years ago and that the previous kingdom had fallen into ruins. The people now called the place New Tokyo. Tamiko added that his mama had whispered in his ear that it had become the kingdom of the people of Itakuri. Hearing all of this, Shuu froze in shock. The memories of when he had been in the hospital suddenly flooded back into his mind. That day, there had been news reports stating that frequent collapses were occurring in the metro, though nobody knew why. As a result, it seemed that all the lines were out of order. When Shu's parents had visited him, they had told him that visiting had become really troublesome because the new Otsuka station had gone out of order. They had to walk the mountain trail from Otsuka station all the way to where he was. His mother had continued explaining that there was such a huge queue at the station waiting to get on a train that they could not even enter the platform, and television stations were calling it the Metro flag. After that, his parents had said goodbye to him. Recalling that moment, Shu slowly realized that the Metro flood sounded familiar. Now that he thought about it, he felt as though he had heard about it before. That day had been incredibly crowded everywhere, even inside the hospital. Suddenly, a nurse had barged in and announced that everyone needed to evacuate the area immediately. Shu had been confused and wanted to know what was happening, but before he could finish, the ground had begun shaking violently. That day, there had been a huge earthquake. The power supply had been cut, leaving everything completely pitch black. The building had trembled as though it were about to collapse at any moment. Then Shu had felt as though he were falling down along with his bed. Shu admitted to himself that he could remember only so much. If what Tamiko was saying was true, then the calamity must have happened alongside the Metro flooding event. Japan, or perhaps the entire world, must have been destroyed by it. New Tokyo must have been formed afterward. The current timeline was approximately 100 years after that event. After piecing everything together, Shuu muttered that it was impossible. Even if he had been asleep for about 100 years, he should have disappeared from the world. Instead, he was as healthy as he had been before the accident. Tamiko wondered whether that meant Abe Shuu was a person from the previous world. Shuu admitted that it certainly seemed that way, but the idea sounded completely impossible. Tamiko wondered whether a normal person could even live that long. Shuu dismissed the possibility, saying that he certainly did not think humans could live for 100 years. He then mentioned that when he had woken up, he had been wrapped in the creepy substance. He wanted to know what it was, and Tamiko explained that it was mold. Shuu froze and wondered if he had actually been inside mold. Tamiko suggested that perhaps it was kinnu. Shuu was confused by the term kinnu. Tamiko released a heavy sigh and complained that it was tiresome having to squeak out explanations to someone who did not know anything at all. Shuu immediately apologized, but without warning, he started rubbing Tamiko's belly. Furious, Tamiko shouted at him not to touch him and called him a dumbass. He threatened to bite Shu's finger off and demanded that he stop. However, only a few seconds later, Tamiko completely submitted to the belly rubs. Shuu once again asked what a kinnu was. Tamiko explained that kinnu was an ability that controlled their kinshur and was also called a skill. But the moment Shuu stopped rubbing his belly, Tamiko immediately shouted at him not to stop because he wanted more belly rubs. Without hesitation, Shuu resumed rubbing his belly and then asked whether the fungal filament must be the mold or some kind of mushroom. While happily enjoying the belly rubs, Tamiko explained that all humans, including Shuu, had fungal filaments inside them. That was why they could make use of kinnu. Hearing that, Shu's face twisted with disgust as he wondered whether fungus residing inside him meant that there was essentially a parasite inside his body. Tamiko then pointed out that Shuu had recently killed the ghost wolf using kinnu. Shocked, Shuu stared at his palm and wondered whether that had been the fungal ability. He remembered that at the time he had only wished to live. Right away, Shuu tried to summon the sword again. Instantly, something appeared in his palm, resembling strands of hair that grew and slowly formed into a sword. Shuu reacted in shock once again and could not believe that he had actually summoned a sword. Tamiko explained that this was Shu's fungal ability and that it was the fungal weapon hunters used. Without hesitation, Shuu pulled the sword completely out of his palm. He stared at it with amazement and noted that it was an unpolished, thirsty blade. It was light, yet it looked extremely sharp, almost like a real sword. He could not believe that this was his fungal. Tamiko confirmed that it was indeed Shu's stiff and sharp thing. Shuu was confused about what that was supposed to mean. Tamiko explained that the hunters from the people of Ikitori used their fungal abilities to obtain resources from the metro. They ate sporangiums to grow stronger and kill even larger beasts. Shu's face filled with disgust as he wondered whether the sporangiums of the metro beasts were essentially their reproductive organs. Tamiko suspected that the creatures were descendants of animals that had survived the metro pandemic 100 years ago. Shuu echoed the explanation and pointed out that Tamiko had used yet another disturbing term. He then shifted to another topic, remembering that Tamiko had said they were in Otsuka Metro. Shuu wondered whether it was near Sugamo or Ikebukuro. Tamiko replied that he did not know because he had never gone to the surface. He had only learned about humans and their language from his mama. Tamiko added that his mama had once squeaked monsters alongside hunters in the past and had been very knowledgeable about things. Noticing the sadness in Tamiko's voice, Shuu turned toward him in surprise. He then asked what it would take to return to the surface. Tamiko immediately answered that it was impossible. Hearing that, Shuu froze. Tamiko pointed out that Shuu was a weak person, nothing more than a small tick in the vast metro. If Shuu remained careless in the metro, he would be squeaked by metro beasts such as the ghost wolf from earlier before he even realized what was happening. Afterward, Shuu would simply squeak into poop in no time. Shuu made it clear that he did not want to become poop. Tamiko added that Shuu would have to climb a great many stairs just to reach the surface. On top of that, there would be many metro beasts squeaking in his way. Because of all this, Tamiko believed reaching the surface was impossible for Shuu. Disappointed, Shuu wondered whether there was any possibility of another human coming down there. Tamiko immediately answered that there was none at all. He admitted that Shuu was the first human he had ever squeaked at in his life, which was why he had been so excited to see him there. Tamiko added that it had been completely unexpected for him to encounter such a shiny face down there. Shuu sarcastically apologized for having such a shiny and attractive face. He then sighed in defeat and concluded that this was the worst of the worst. Tamiko suddenly added that despite everything, Shuu was still Shuu Abe. He therefore needed to level up more and become capable of fighting against the metro beasts. Tamiko advised Shuu to eat more and more sporangiums and become a fierce hunter, just like the hunter his mama had teamed up with. Hearing all of this, Shuu was momentarily stunned. He admitted that he did not think he would be able to do this alone because he had not prepared for anything. He had no equipment and zero knowledge about the modern world. Tamiko leapt onto his shoulder and announced that he would help Shuu. With the knowledge he had received from his mama, he would do his best to squeak alongside Shuu during battles. Surprised, Shuu expressed his gratitude but wondered why Tamiko wanted to help him. Tamiko excitedly revealed that he also wanted to squeak on the surface. He had spent his entire life squeaking down in the metro and wanted to see everything above ground, including the sun and the towns built by humans. That was why he wanted to help Shuu become stronger. He wanted the two of them to squeak on the surface together. Shuu understood and recognized that it was essentially a win-win proposal. Then, out of nowhere, Tamiko questioned whether she had a male reproductive organ and revealed that she was female. Shuu awkwardly confirmed that he did. With full determination, Shuu stood up while thinking about the underground basement level 50 and the metro filled with rampant beasts. Although he only had the fungal sword as his weapon and a squirrel as his companion, he wondered what kind of adventure this even was. However, he knew that he would not understand it until he discovered the truth for himself. Tamiko declared that it was time for them to start squeaking. Shuu Abe. Shuu shook hands with Tamiko using his finger and expressed that he was looking forward to getting along with her. Tamiko replied that the feeling was mutual and promised to give it her all so that they could both do their best. Judging from this outcome, the two of them would probably spend 5 years on this level. Shuu asked Tamiko to treat him gently. Tamiko reassured him that everything would be all right. With Tamiko around him, it would be just like squeaking on a leafy boat. Shuu immediately pointed out that such a boat would definitely sink. Tamiko complained that he should not be mean because she was being completely serious. The two of them were going to squeak their way toward the sun shining over New Tokyo before they even knew it. The next day, when Shuu opened his eyes, he found himself in a familiar room. He realized that this was where he had been admitted. At that moment, a nurse announced that it was time to have a meal. Relief washed over Shuu as he realized that all of that had just been a dream. A doctor asked Shuu how he was feeling. While checking on him, Shuu questioned when he would be discharged. The doctor answered that once Shuu had leveled up sufficiently, he would be discharged. Hearing that, Shuu reacted in confusion. Just then, Tamiko cheerfully greeted him with a good morning, saying that it was bright outside. Shuu immediately woke up, realizing that it had only been a dream. He sighed heavily, murmuring that this nightmare kept going even after he woke up. Tamiko pointed out that he had just woken up, and yet had already started complaining. Her words instantly faltered the moment Shuu rubbed her belly. Silently, Shuu recalled that this place was the 50th level of Otsuka Metro, and from what Tamiko had told him, this seemed to be a vast labyrinth spread out deep underneath Tokyo. And yet, it was so bright in here. Tamiko pointed something out, informing him that this was a firefly nest. The morning squeaks were bright here, while the nights were filled with blueness. Shuu then wondered whether they had really fallen asleep, just like that yesterday. He was feeling very hungry and thirsty, and wished they could find some water. Hearing that, Tamiko suggested that they go to the oasis. Shuu echoed the word in confusion, wondering what an oasis was. Without delay, Tamiko guided him there. Just then, he noticed the ghost wolf from yesterday. He mentioned that it looked like the beast was already turning into some sort of seed plot, even though there was no light reaching it. Tamiko replied that this was simply how fungus grew. There was also a lot of fungus growing in the oasis. Hearing that, Shuu decided to summon his sword just in case. At the same time, he recalled that the fungal ability and that blackish mold from earlier had healing properties and the ability to summon a sword. For now, he knew that he could use these two abilities, but he wondered if there were more. Noticing his silence, Tamiko called his attention and urged him to get going. Right away, they began their journey to the oasis. Tamiko continued giving him directions until they finally arrived. The moment Shuu saw the oasis, he could not help but remark on how incredible it was. But he immediately snapped out of it and looked around alarmingly. Tamiko reassured him that everything would be okay because, with her fungal ability, she could pick up even the tiniest of sounds. Tamiko proudly added that there were no beasts nearby, only some rats and other small animals. With that, Shuu calmed down. Tamiko then excitedly told Shuu that there was water. Without wasting a moment, the two of them headed there. Shuu scooped water with his palms and drank from them. The moment he tasted it, he was stunned by how delicious it was. He noted that the sensation was something else and that he had never drunk such tasty water before. Next to him, Tamiko commented that making a noise was very rude. She then began splashing water onto herself before wiping herself with a dry leaf. Satisfied, she announced that she was done cleaning herself. With a curious look, Shuu called out to her and asked what the red jewel on her forehead was. Tamiko simply explained that even her mama had one, so maybe that was just how squirrels were. Without warning, Shuu patted the jewel, which Tamiko immediately protested against, telling him not to touch it because it was very sensitive. But instantly, her anger faded and was replaced with pleasure. She even asked him to pat her more. Seeing that, Shuu pointed out that she was pretty easy to understand. Moments later, Shuu suggested that they should find some food. Seeing some unfamiliar plants around, he admitted that he had never seen plants like these in his entire life. Tamiko immediately told him to leave it to her. She pointed to a nearby plant and informed him that the glossy plant was very bad news. Then she pointed out that the spindling plant and the bushy plant over there were edible. Excitedly, Tamiko pointed to another plant and informed him that it was known as an acorn dandelion. Shuu silently watched her eating the plant while thinking that she was definitely a squirrel, and he guessed that was just how things were. Shuu looked around with amazement as he remarked that it did not seem like there was enough to satisfy his hunger, but the place was really something else. The withered grass looked so smooth and perhaps had some good properties. Since it was also very sturdy, he realized that he could use it like thread. If he collected a lot more of it, he might even be able to make a bed for himself. Shuu approached another plant, muttering that he had also been wondering about the giant leaf for a while. At that moment, an idea popped into his mind. Right away, Shuu wrapped a leaf around his waist like a skirt, exclaiming that he was finally no longer naked. He noted that it looked good for something made so hastily. He then called out to Tamiko and asked if she sensed any wolves or anything. Tamiko told him that animals like those did not come in there often. She explained that her mama had whispered in her ear that carnivorous animals usually squeaked away from the heavy floral smell of the oasis. Hearing that, Shuu suggested that perhaps they should live there. Tamiko hesitated, explaining that if those animals came in there, they would have nowhere to run. Shuu agreed and said that there was no exception when it came to safety. And so, after that, they spent their time setting up a base at their hideout by harvesting the necessary goods to make a basic living. Completely exhausted, Shuu complained that it was so hard to make a fire. Tamiko pointed out that it was because they were all damn. Unconsciously, Shuu grabbed the mouse passing by. He thought in surprise that this was some unexpected agility coming from him. He wondered if this was also a benefit from leveling up. Tamiko scolded him, telling him that it was time to stop being such a sissy and to stop being so pathetic and kill it completely. Shuu replied inwardly that he was just trying to keep the rodents away, squirrel buddy. Then, before killing the mouse, Shuu apologized. After that, he was able to obtain a rat sporangium, but it was so small. He noted that because he could not handle stronger beasts like the ghost wolf just yet, picking up smaller animals was perhaps the safest way to level up for now. Tamiko explained that it was going to be very tough for him to level up like this. She knew he was a small, squeaky human, but it would take around 10,000 rodents before he leveled up. She added that if he was going to hunt, he should try fighting against a ghost wolf or a blue goblin. Either of those two were fairly weak for him to squeak against. Shuu echoed the information in surprise upon hearing about a goblin. Tamiko informed him that it was a monkey-like creature with dense fur all over its body. There were 3 types of goblins: red, blue, and green. The blue one was stronger than the green one and was on the same level as a ghost wolf. Shuu replied that surely it was above his level and wondered if they could go for the green one instead. Tamiko revealed that this floor only had the blue and red ones. The red ones were dangerous because they were above level 15 and could apparently squeak out the fungal ability. Without a second thought, Shuu decided that they were definitely going to avoid them. Tamiko continued explaining that the red ones could squeak out fungal weapons or sometimes fungal balls too. Shuu questioned what fungus balls were. Internally, he admitted that he could not imagine what they were, but wondered if perhaps they were tools that could be thrown. Filled with confusion, Shuu asked if Tamiko could use something like that. Immediately, Tamiko snapped at him, saying that she could not do anything like that because she was a squeaking female and calling him a dumbass. Shuu replied that he understood and shrugged it off before suggesting that they should keep a lookout near their hideout's entrance. When they sensed a blue goblin or a ghost wolf nearby, it would be their battle for survival. Tamiko nodded and said that she would take care of waking up their bones. However, Shuu told her that she would be helping him. 3 days passed. Tamiko's loud voice echoed as she called out to Shuu and told him to wake up, sleepyhead. Shuu groaned in pain from her punch. Tamiko alarmed him by informing him that there was one nearby and that it was coming toward them. Hearing that, Shuu was surprised and realized that it was finally time. He asked whether it was a ghost wolf or a goblin. Tamiko answered that it was both of them. Both beasts were fighting because wolves and monkeys did not get along well together. She instructed Shuu to squeak in when the fight was over, squeak up on the last standing beast, and backstab it. Shuu gripped his fist with determination, remarking that this was the third-party advantage. But slowly, fear surged through him. Tamiko scolded him to squeak up and hold it together. With a trembling voice, Shuu reminded himself that he had no choice but to do it because he wanted to go to the surface. Calming himself down, he declared that this was it, and that this was their first step. Nearby, just as Tamiko had said, the two beasts were fighting with each other. Meanwhile, Shuu and Tamiko hid themselves. He noted in his thoughts that the blue goblin was perhaps a meter tall. It was ferocious and very nimble. But considering the level difference between the two beasts, the ghost wolf dominated. At that moment, the ghost wolf bit off the goblin's arm, defeating it in an instant. Shuu wondered if the ghost wolf had triumphed. But all of a sudden, something sharp struck the ghost wolf's eye. Shuu was shocked. Tamiko notified him that another one had squeaked into the fight, and it was the red goblin. She then reacted in surprise upon seeing that the red goblin could squeak out fungal needles. Without wasting a second, the red goblin threw more needles at the ghost wolf, and then leapt toward it for the finishing blow. However, the ghost wolf, which seemed to have lost its strength, lunged at the red goblin and bit off its head, defeating it instantly. Nearby, both Shuu and Tamiko were stunned by what they had witnessed. Just then, the ghost wolf let out a piercing roar. Shuu broke into a cold sweat as he nervously remarked on how insane this was. He thought that the red goblin was weak, but perhaps the ghost wolf was the strongest one. Shuu wondered if he would really be able to win against these terrifying monsters. That cornered wolf was the most terrifying one of them all. Worried, Tamiko called out to him. Although he was scared, Shuu decided to stand up on his feet, telling Tamiko that he would leave the bone picking to her. Then he rushed toward where the ghost wolf was. Shuu gripped his sword tightly as he rushed toward the beast. He told himself that if an adult man carrying a katana at waist length while wearing a skirt charged at an enemy while screaming, and his coworker happened to see this sight unfolding, they would probably send him back to the hospital. With a piercing roar, Shuu leapt toward the beast and swung his sword. After a few moments, the ghost wolf's body lay lifelessly on the ground. Tamiko's voice filled with concern as she called out to Shuu and pointed out that he was covered in blood, urging him not to die. Covered with wounds, Shuu reassured her that he was fine and would be cured soon. He added that although his opponent had been heavily wounded, this was still the outcome, and he had won in the end. It was amazing that even such an injury could be healed, making him wonder who the real monster was here. Just a few seconds later, his body was fully healed. Tamiko was amazed that he was back to how he had been before. She told him that if he was okay, he should hurry up and extract the sporangium, urging him to squeak it and stop wasting time. Shuu sighed and pointed out how she had changed instantly, even though she had been crying just moments ago. At that moment, a growl echoed nearby. Shuu crashed back to the ground as his strength suddenly wavered. He glanced back and realized that the red goblin had survived, even though its body was covered with heavy wounds. Meanwhile, Shuu began to panic because his sword would not come out no matter how many times he summoned it. He wondered if it was because his wounds were not fully healed, and he could not muster enough energy. Just then, the red goblin lunged at him, and Shuu barely managed to block it. The red goblin charged at him again, sending Shuu crashing back to the ground. Tamiko worriedly called out to him. Shuu gasped in pain from the impact and cursed inwardly, noting that even though this beast was on the verge of death, it still packed quite a punch. As the beast approached, Tamiko rushed forward and shielded Shuu with her small body. She tried to intimidate the red goblin, but her body trembled non-stop. Tamiko insisted that she would handle it and told Shuu to run away instead. At the next moment, the red goblin stretched out its hand toward her. Shuu cursed inwardly and forced himself not to become overwhelmed by the situation. If he did not do something, they would die, and it was all the same. Suddenly, he noticed something. When he glanced at his finger, he saw something string-like coming out of his wound. At first, he wondered if it was blood or a thread, but then he realized that it was neither. It was a red fungal filament. Shuu was momentarily shocked. Meanwhile, Tamiko was about to be swallowed by the red goblin, but at the right moment, Shuu warned her to get away. Immediately, Shuu threw the bundled fungal filaments toward the red goblin, striking its head with perfect accuracy. The moment the attack connected, flames erupted, setting the beast ablaze and burning it alive. Tamiko watched in amazement, instantly recognizing the technique as a fungal ball. Without wasting a second, Shuu grabbed his sword and rushed toward the red goblin, which was desperately trying to extinguish the fire consuming its body. He raised his sword high and, with a loud shout, delivered the finishing blow. Tamiko suddenly called out to him and tossed a sporangium into his mouth, telling him to open his mouth. After swallowing it, Shuu called out to her. Alarmed, Tamiko quickly asked what was wrong. Shuu let out a sigh and reassured her that he was fine and that it seemed he had leveled up. Hearing that, Tamiko exclaimed that she was glad and jumped toward him with tears in her eyes. Shuu immediately pulled her away. He then noticed the blood covering her body and asked what had happened to the goblin. Tamiko explained that the blood was not hers and told him to look around. Right away, Shuu glanced around and saw 3 beasts lying lifelessly on the ground. Slowly, reality began to sink in. He had truly survived. He could not believe it, as a completely unbelievable, life-threatening situation had unfolded, and an average man like himself who had lived a careful life had survived it. Shuu began celebrating, amazed at their complete victory, going from 3 sporangiums to 6 in one squeak. Meanwhile, Shuu wondered what it was that he was feeling, realizing that he was actually enjoying himself. Tamiko explained to him that the fungal ball had 2 types of uses. If he ate it, he would recover, and if he threw it, it would explode in flames. Shuu was surprised to realize that they could heal him if he ingested them. He recalled that when he had thrown one earlier, the goblin had caught fire. As he mentioned fire, Shuu slowly realized that if he had this skill, then he could make a fire. Tamiko agreed with his idea. And so, after acquiring the flammable fungal balls, he had improved his survival here by a tiny margin. He had also obtained a throwing weapon for battles, but that did not make him a capable fighter. It became a daily routine for Tamiko to carefully bait monsters for him to take down. Panting heavily, Shuu admitted that he could move better than before, but all he could do was barely move with all these injuries. Tamiko smugly commented that he had certainly squeaked with that blue goblin for a long time. Shuu glanced at her and asked what her level was and whether she had any skills that could help him in battle. Tamiko replied that small animals fought small, and that she would not be much use if she stepped in. Groaning, she added that she had a feeling she was going to remain there all the time. Shuu noted in his thoughts that it would be difficult if Tamiko got caught by the wolves, and that she should cling to him after all. Tamiko mentioned that there used to be a super strong metro beast around that area, and if it had still been there, she would have been pooped by then. Hearing that, Shuu questioned her level again. Then one day, something changed. Tamiko excitedly pointed out that there was a pelt, mushrooms, and sporangium, praising Shuu for squeaking well enough to bring in another good harvest for the day. The two of them immediately expressed their gratitude for the food and began eating. The moment Shuu swallowed the sporangium, some strange energy surged through his body. While eating, Tamiko asked what was wrong. Shuu told her that just then it felt as though his back had gotten hotter and that it felt slightly different from a level up. Tamiko questioned whether he was serious and explained that if his back was hot, it meant he had obtained a new kinnu. Hearing that, Shuu was surprised and asked what he should do now. Tamiko instructed him to try squeaking some of it out like last time. Right away, Shuu did what she said. He repeatedly told himself in his mind for it to come out, and he also tried whispering, praying, and chanting. Unconsciously, he became so absorbed in the moment that he even started using Tamiko's style of speaking. At that moment, something swirled in his palm. Shuu excitedly announced that it had come out. Tamiko was equally excited and announced that it would be his new kinnu. At that moment, a shield appeared, leaving the two of them momentarily stunned. Shuu tried striking it with his sword and noted that it felt just as hard as his fungal katana, making it a fungal shield. He added that it would not serve him offensively, but at least it would help in battle. Afterward, he fought another beast. Shuu was shocked to realize that the shield repelled bite and claw attacks and that he could use it as a diversion. He realized that it was quite useful. Suddenly, a realization hit him. This was the first time he had come out of a battle completely unscathed. With the same thought in mind, Shuu and Tamiko turned toward each other and began celebrating their victory. Lying exhaustedly, Shuu muttered that this was really good. Tamiko added that it was quite something and told him to keep squeaking at that rate. Shuu immediately obeyed, and then questioned once again what her level was. Currently, Abe Shuu was finally at level 7. Moments later, they returned to their base. Shuu carved the number 36 onto the wall. He mentioned that it had been half a year since he had walked up there, and that he had changed a little. Facing the approaching ghost wolf, he steeled himself for the fight. Without warning, the beast launched an attack, but Shuu dodged and counterattacked, though the ghost wolf evaded as well. The creature charged again, and Shuu blocked it with his shield, forcing it backward. The ghost wolf rushed forward once more, and Shuu raised his sword, internally focusing on striking its neck. Suddenly, the ghost wolf clamped onto his sword, biting it and shocking him, while another ghost wolf attacked from behind. Tamiko warned him, and Shuu quickly turned around as a fungal mass formed on his finger, which he hurled at the incoming wolf, igniting it in flames. Another ghost wolf immediately followed, but Shuu reacted quickly, stabbing it in the stomach and bringing it down lifelessly. He sighed in relief, admitting that the ambush had scared him. Tamiko told him that his squeaking sounds had silenced this wolf's footsteps and that even she had not noticed it. The burning wolf whimpered as it struggled, and Shuu placed his katana above it, apologizing before finishing it off completely. At that moment, Shu's level reached 17. Afterwards, they headed to the oasis. Shuu couldn't believe that he had gotten used to living there in half a year. Tamiko, who had recently reached level 14, commented that he had gotten strong too and had been fighting quite well that day, adding that it was all thanks to her guidance. Shuu shot back that he had already passed her level. In his mind, he noted that even though he had leveled up quite a bit and his body felt stronger, there was no outward change. So that meant that his parasitic fungal filament had gotten stronger instead of him. He added that even so, he had managed to make clothes out of wolf's pelt that was dried and sewn together using a straw string. He had also made a bowl out of stone, mixing mycelium leaves with hot water to make a tea of sorts, which was one of the few luxuries available. He also had a canteen to hold water, made out of a wolf's bladder. Shuu mentioned that it had been more than half a year since the last level up. He wondered if their level was now too high to increase just from killing wolves. Tamiko agreed that it was true, as these beasts could no longer squeak against them. Shuu pointed out that he did not join in the fight, though. Tamiko glared at him, and asked if he wanted to squeak it up a notch. Shuu ignored her and thought that while the metro beasts had the sporangium inside of them, they did not reproduce at the same rate as a mushroom's fungal spores. They bred normally through male and female progression. He had once caught a glimpse of a newly born ghost wolf. Their numbers were not so small that he could exterminate an entire species by himself. He wondered what sort of influence overhunting ghost wolves would have on the ecosystem. If that were to happen, would the strongest class monsters start dominating this level? Strong monsters like ogres, orthrus, and others. Tamiko told him that they could squeak at this trash level for a bit more and enjoy their prosperity. Shuu sighed, remarking that she had no drive. Then he said that if only he could meet a woman around 30 in the metro. Did Tamiko not think they should take the next step and try ascending? Hearing that, Tamiko replied that even though he was still half-baked in terms of strength, he sure had confidence. She added that the squeak from a noob to intermediate was one filled with danger. Shuu agreed with what she said, saying that it was reasonable. Tamiko told him that once he squeaked a bit more to level up, they could switch their main target to the Red Goblin. At that mention, Shuu recalled those beasts in his mind. With burning determination, Tamiko declared that goblins were a dastardly bunch, that they stank like ass, were dirty, and never shut the squeak up. Their disgusting laughs were annoying, and they would eat anything from a roach to a wolf. She was determined to crush them so hard that they would go extinct. Hearing those remarks, Shuu wondered if she had a personal grudge against goblins, although he was the one doing the fighting. Tamiko explained that it was simply because their turfs and hideout were in different locations, so while they were en route, they might come across other strong beasts. Shuu commented that it sucked. Then he suggested that perhaps she should go collect information first. Tamiko handed him a sporangium and told him to eat up instead of worrying, because she was already full. Shuu accepted it and replied that he would do that. However, the moment it entered his body, he suddenly felt the same sensation he had experienced back then. He quickly turned to Tamiko and informed her that his back had gotten hot just then. Tamiko leapt in excitement upon hearing that he had obtained a new skill after so long. She then quickly told him to try squeaking it out. Shuu acknowledged her and told her to step back a bit. He concentrated, and slowly, strings came out from his thumb and began to swirl, forming another fungal ball. He wondered what use it had. Right away, he tested it by throwing it at a nearby tree, but nothing happened, and he realized that it seemed to have been the wrong choice. Nearby, he noticed a rat and, without warning, caught it. He wondered if maybe it had an effect only if they ate it. With that thought in mind, he tried feeding the rat the fungal ball, and immediately the rat began eating it. He could not help but remark that it was kind of cute. Shortly after that, they returned to their hideout. Disappointed, Shuu said that he had not noticed anything different. Tamiko pointed out that the mouse seemed a little too lively. Shuu glanced at her and asked if she could talk to this guy. Hearing his request, Tamiko angrily told him not to lump her together with that son of a bitch, calling him a moron and a damn delicate-faced man. She told him that he should go find a rock to squeak and talk to. Shuu smirked and asked her if she was sure she wanted to say that. Without warning, he picked her up and threateningly said that the next experiment was going to be them eating his balls. Tamiko screamed that this was animal abuse and demanded that he get his stinky balls away from her. She told him to stop, but the moment she tasted the fungal ball, she remarked that it was so good. It was so juicy, and there was a faint taste of sweetness. She wondered if these were the sweets from outside that her mommy had told her about. Shuu, who also took a bite, replied that it was not. Then, upon tasting it, he remarked that it did not seem to be poison, and that he would not say it was very good. Well, it did sort of feel like he had become a bit energized, so he wondered what it was. Tamiko asked for another, and said that it would be better if they squeaked out more about it. Seeing her puffed cheeks, Shuu could not help but remark that she was so cute. In his mind, he noted that he now had 5 fungal abilities. The first was the regenerative filament. If it was a minor injury, it would recover in a few seconds, while a heavy injury would require several minutes. Restoring serious injuries came with an onset side effect, like a violent feeling of hunger. He wondered if the reason he had survived for 100 years was thanks to this ability. The second was the fungal filament sword. It was a sword made out of fungal filament, and its physical properties resembled those of a bone. It was light and surprisingly hard. The third was the fireballs, a valuable tool for attacking from a long distance. Once they hit a hard surface, the cocoon would burst. It created a small explosion on impact and set the target on fire. The fourth was the fungal filament shield. Its thickness measured around 5 centimeters, and its shape was circular. The material was just as tough as the swords. The joint was strong enough to withstand emergency deployment even if he summoned it on the palm or the back of his hand. And the latest addition was the mysterious fungal ball. If it was squeezed, it leaked sweet juice. Nothing happened even if they ingested it. He questioned if it did have some sort of medicinal effect. But watching Tamiko eat it, it felt like, other than strengthening her heart, Tamiko was also experiencing something else. The next morning, while washing his face, Tamiko suddenly alarmed him that it was here. She turned to her in confusion. At that moment, a creature arrived with a horn on its forehead. Shuu asked her if unicorns were strong. Tamiko explained that it was in a different class, and that on this floor, it was the top squeaker in terms of strength. Nothing else could touch it. She added that the creature did not attack anybody, and that even if attacked, it only hastily ran away. But if for squeak reasons it became serious, it would one punch or rather one kick kill its opponent. Hearing that, Shuu wondered how much experience eating its sporangium would give him. He wondered if he could hunt it somehow, perhaps by surprising it or feeding it poisonous food. Suddenly, the unicorn turned their way. Seeing its intimidating aura, Shuu immediately shook off the idea. Afterwards, they set out for another adventure. Tamiko told him that they would only inspect the goblin village that day, and that they should not fight yet. Shuu replied that he understood. Just then, a noise echoed nearby. Shuu muttered that even though he said that it was not like a battle could be completely avoided. At that moment, the ghost wolf charged at him, but Shuu defeated it in an instant. While eating the sporangium, he noted that it had taken only a minute and that he had really become quite strong. Then all of a sudden, an energy surged through Tamiko's body. She then celebrated that she had leveled up and was now level 15, announcing that she had squeaked to new heights. Shuu congratulated her and asked if this was the third time in half a year, meaning that she had been level 12 when they met. Tamiko replied that it seemed to be the case. Shuu told her that she did not really need to hide it. Tamiko explained that it was inappropriate to ask a lady her age and level and that it was better to let others dream. Shuu questioned if she meant like an unmarried woman. Tamiko pointed out that Shuu squeaked his level-ups fast and quickly squeaked past her, saying that it seemed her eyes had not been wrong about him. Tamiko added that Shuu was amazing and told him to keep squeaking because she was sure he would become a lot stronger. Hearing those remarks, Shuu was momentarily stunned. Then he scratched his face, a bit embarrassed, as he replied that there was nobody to compare to there, but that it was all thanks to Tamiko. In an instant, Tamiko's face changed into a smug expression as she replied that she knew it. If she were not there, he would forever be a snack for the wolves. So Shuu should be grateful, she told him, calling him a damn goby. Seeing that, Shuu commented that bonus time sure had run out fast for those praises. Later on, they continued on their journey. Tamiko informed him that it was time for the next part of the plan. She would go take a look, and if there were a lot of them, she would run away. Shuu told her that it was okay, so she should not be rash. Just then he saw a plant ahead. He admitted that it was his first time seeing this plant, and that it reminded him of Lily of the Valley, but it was a little different. He then asked Tamiko if it was edible. Upon seeing what he meant, Tamiko immediately told him not to touch it. However, it was too late, as Shu's finger had already touched it. At that moment, the plant rang violently like a bell, causing a loud noise to echo throughout the place. Shuu reacted in shock. Tamiko immediately cut the plant off, and instantly the noise stopped. Shuu gasped in surprise. Tamiko turned angrily toward him, scolding him for being a fool and reminding him that she had already taught him not to touch any unknown plants. Shuu quickly apologized and reasoned that it did not look dangerous to him. Tamiko told him that it was a Baluran plant and that it must be a trap squeaky by the goblins. It would not be long before those monkeys came there. Tamiko began trembling nervously, exclaiming that this was bad and super squeaky bad. Shuu asked if that meant it had been there even after 100 years. Suddenly, he felt a chill running down his spine. He noticed that the atmosphere had somehow just changed. He quickly got up and decided that they had to hide and return at once. Tamiko jumped onto his shoulder and agreed. At the same time, the goblins who had been busy eating heard the noise and immediately became alert, rushing toward the direction of the sound. Tamiko warned Shuu that the goblins were coming, and when he looked back, he saw 3 goblins chasing them. He cursed aloud, wondering if they should fight, but Tamiko quickly refused, insisting that even for him, the 3 goblins would be too tough. There was a red one as well. Just then, a wolf charged at the goblins that were chasing them, and Shuu felt relieved at the sight, thinking that it might distract the goblins. But the wolf was instantly killed, leaving him horrified. He immediately broke into a desperate run while Tamiko reacted in panic, describing the situation as very bad and cruel and expressing that this was why she hated goblins. Shuu replied that he was with her on that one, but told her to stop shouting in his ear. They passed through the area, while another wolf nearby silently watched them, and Shuu concluded that they had to shake them off somewhere somehow. Shuu glanced back at the goblins chasing them and complained that they had only ventured out a little, and this was what they got. Tamiko panicked as she announced that the goblins were squeaking after them. Shuu stopped, realizing that there was no way around it. He then told Tamiko to get away. Suddenly, the goblins froze, fear overtaking them as they quickly retreated. Shuu was confused as to why they had fled, but then Tamiko began trembling with fear, her eyes filled with terror, and Shuu himself felt a chill run through his body. When he turned around, he saw a massive creature standing silently and staring at them, its eyes completely black, and Shuu froze in place, shocked that he could not hear its footsteps and wondering just what this was. Tamiko's voice shook as she revealed that the monster's level was above 50. Hearing this, Shuu tightened his grip on his sword and told Tamiko to escape now, saying that he would buy her some time. But Tamiko hesitated. Shuu told her to hurry, but before he could finish speaking, the monster suddenly appeared in front of him and attacked. Shuu quickly summoned his shield, but the moment the blow landed, it shattered completely, sending him flying through the air. He coughed blood as he crashed heavily to the ground. His arm twisted as he struggled in pain. Tamiko called out to him in alarm, telling him to get a grip. Unable to move, Shuu muttered that things were bad. The giant beast then reached toward him, and Shuu realized that he was going to die there as the creature lifted him by the head. The monster opened its mouth, horrifying him, and tightened its grip, causing him to writhe in agony as he desperately tried to break free. Meanwhile, Tamiko, unable to watch any longer, charged in. Her small body landed on the beast's shoulder and bit into it as she shouted at it, calling it a damn ape and demanding that it let go of Abe's Shuu. Shuu was shocked to see her, but the beast quickly smacked her off its shoulder with ease. Seeing blood on the beast's fur, Shu's expression froze. Nearby, Tamiko's small body fell motionless to the ground, covered in blood. Witnessing this, Shuu screamed in rage and immediately activated his fungal balls, shouting at the beast while hurling them, which burst into flames and allowed him to break free from its grip. Without hesitation, he rushed toward Tamiko, but as he reached out to grab her, he realized that his arm had been torn off, and pain began to throb through his body. He looked up to see the beast roaring in anger as it launched another attack, which he narrowly evaded, but on the next strike he was hit in the back, and its claws pierced through his flesh, lifting him toward its mouth. In that moment, Shuu forced his hands forward and detonated fungal balls inside the beast's mouth, causing it to roar in pain as he crashed to the ground. As he fell, he looked toward Tamiko's unmoving body and desperately crawled to her, and when he finally reached her, he picked her up with his regenerating hand. He then noticed fragments of shattered shells nearby and recalled that Tamiko's second fungal ability was the fungal filament shell. It created a hard, lightweight shell for protection, much like a turtle shell. So at the very least, Tamiko had managed to guard against the attack. Even so, his hope began to waver as he looked at her motionless form. But he forced himself to believe that Tamiko would not die. He absolutely would not let her die. Immediately, Shuu rushed back to their hideout. When they arrived, Shuu immediately tried his best to treat her. Panicking, he wondered if there was any other medicinal plant he could use. As he squeezed some plants onto her wounds, he shouted, reminding her that she was a magical beast and that she should not let some monkey swat her like some fly. He urged her to hang in there and promised that he would do something to make her better. In his mind, he recalled that even though she was weak and a coward, she had tried to save him. At the time, he had completely broken down and accepted his death. If Tamiko had not come to him then, he would have died. Seeing that Tamiko still had not woken up despite treating her, Shuu desperately told her to wake up and questioned whether they were not going to ascend together. He began to hate the fact that although he could heal his arm and his abdomen as he pleased, he could not do anything for his partner if she got injured. He wondered why he even had this power if he could not use it to save her. Shuu held her small hands and desperately wondered what he should do. If she was not with him, then he would be alone. Suddenly, he noticed something swirling. It was the strange ability he had recently acquired. Without any hesitation, he squeezed out that fungal ball, pouring the liquid into Tamiko's mouth, onto her hand, and over the areas where her wounds were. At that moment, Tamiko coughed and her eyes finally opened. She first noticed Shuu, who was on the brink of tears. She asked why he was crying. Shuu quickly denied it, reasoning that something had gotten into his eyes, and that was all. The next day, Tamiko returned to her energetic attitude. She remarked that it was a useful ability and that with him around, injuries would not be much of a problem. Shuu replied that these had an absurd healing factor, but they took a lot out of him to make. Finally, they discovered that his fifth fungal ability was the recovery ball, and that the liquid inside the ball healed injuries. Shuu then added that even so, the food they had stockpiled for emergencies sure ran out fast. Well, they had been able to come back alive from that huge level difference encounter, so he was sure eating this much would not come back to bite them. But they had barely gone out, and this had happened, so he wondered what kind of level it would take to get out of there. Suddenly, Tamiko stopped and apologized to him. Shuu turned to her in confusion. Tamiko confessed that there was something she had not told him. Shuu echoed her statement in confusion, wondering what she had not told him. Tamiko told him that when they first met, she had said that her mom had a partner. Shuu recalled that and stated that if he became as strong as that guy, there would be hope. Shuu then remembered that Tamiko had been born 5 years ago, and that Tamiko's mom had died last year, but he wondered what had happened to that partner. He turned to her, and Kamiko, whose eyes filled with despair, revealed that her mom's partner had died on the 49th floor. Her mom, who had been pregnant with her at the time, had managed to run away. Once they climbed the stairs to the 49th floor, there would be a boss monster. It was stronger than any Oni, ogre, or wraith. It was a true monster. Tamiko narrated to Shuu that her mom and that human had a life-or-death battle with the boss on the 49th floor. The boss's strength was far beyond their assumptions. Realizing that they could not beat it, they decided to retreat. However, for some reason, the entrance door would not budge at all. So they decided to take refuge on the 50th floor stairway. To return to the surface, the two of them planned to fight the boss. After a week's time, they challenged the boss of floor 49 again. The hunter was defeated. Her mommy retreated to the 50th floor and gave birth to her. Her mom got married, so that was supposed to be the last time she would help the hunter. She remembered that her mommy always wanted to meet up with her daddy. So when she got bigger, they would leave this place together. Her mom said that the door was a one-way trap. She gasped in disbelief, wondering if it could only be opened from the outside. Tamiko continued, explaining that they believed there was a switch somewhere, so they frantically searched for it, but they were unable to find it. While they were being attacked, her mom told her to go down first and that her mom would come right after. But in the end, it had been to let her get away. Tamiko's words faltered as tears began streaming down her face. She comforted her, realizing that she had been doing her best on her own since then. He then stroked her head. She released a heavy sigh as he thought about the boss. He asked her what kind it was. Tamiko revealed that it was a slime. She repeated the word in surprise, wondering if she meant those semi-transparent blobs of liquid. Tamiko confirmed that it was a massive round shape. No matter how they attacked it, it did not budge at all. Hearing that, Shuu silently thought that it seemed to match with what he knew. Tamiko suddenly admitted that when she first met him, he did not know anything and was mentally weak to boot. If she was completely honest with him, she had thought his spirit would break. Shuu agreed that it was true. He noted in his mind that even though he was a loner, he was quite fond of being an observer of others. If Tamiko had told him that back then, he was not sure he would have been able to take it. Tamiko continued, telling him that when her mom came there, she was level 38 and her partner was over level 50. Hearing that, Shuu concluded that in other words, unless they became strong enough to defeat not only the monsters there, but that boss as well, getting out would be very difficult. The two of them immediately fell silent at the unrealistic condition. Shuu then asked how her injuries were. Tamiko reassured him that it was okay, even though she liked the recovery balls. She repeated her statement to him again, as if hinting at something. Shuu responded that she seemed fine and told her that he would make one for now. Then he asked Tamiko if she wanted to go to the surface to meet her dad. She admitted immediately that it was one of the reasons she wanted to meet him, but she had heard a lot about it from her mommy. The surface was also perfectly, all sparkly. There were a lot of people, and the cities were eye-poppingly large. There were things so delicious that their cheeks would not stop squeaking. There was also the so-called sun on the ceiling, a very big light testicle. She corrected her that it was not a testicle. Tamiko added that at night they could see scenery full of sparkling stars, and that she would like to look at it. She could not help but smile. Tamiko glanced at him, adding that she had also heard that the surface had a lot of good-looking males. Hearing that, Shuu pointed out that it had gotten a different meaning fast. Tamiko reflected that she was weak, so she had given up on reaching it, but really, she had always been thinking of leaving this place. At the time she met Shuu, she thought this was her last chance. She harshly remarked that he was smooth all over with a delicate face, did not know anything, and was a damn weakling at level 1. But she cut her off and gave a sarcastic reply, saying he was sorry to be so disappointing. Tamiko added that even so, she was glad that it was him. Hearing that, Shuu was stunned. Tamiko said that Shuu was a good guy. She somehow understood now what mommy meant, that being together with their partner was an exciting experience. Embarrassed at her confession, Shuu squeezed the fungal ball on her face. Then he thought that somehow, lately, it felt like he was going with the flow. Moments later, as they were about to sleep, Tamiko asked him what he wanted to do when he reached the surface. Shuu answered that first he would confirm what had happened to the surface with his own eyes. After that, he would go for some tasty stuff like yakiniku or ramen, drink some beer, sleep on a bed, then wear better clothes, and if there were smartphones, he would watch videos. After that, marriage maybe. He admitted that when he thought about all this, he felt more driven to go through with it. Tamiko turned to him and asked if he would not continue to be a hunter. Shuu asked in surprise whether that sort of choice was also available. Well, he would think about it when he got out. Tamiko remarked that one day Shuu would get there. If it was him, then he would become an amazing hunter. She insisted that her eyes were not wrong. Shuu told her that he was flattered and asked if it was not because he was the first hunter she had seen. Tamiko answered that it was because she was partnered with him. Shuu was momentarily stunned, then suddenly burst into laughter. Tamiko immediately complained that this was a serious conversation. But the moment Shuu tickled her belly, she began begging for more. Shuu then remarked that an amateur and a small animal had managed to survive in this hellhole for half a year. And if anything, that was quite amazing. Filled with newfound resolve, he added that yesterday had been a harsh experience, but from tomorrow onward, they would continue advancing steadily. They would keep hunting wolves and goblins, and someday they would get revenge on that freaking monkey. But he was afraid that was a goal for the long term. So first, they should become more experienced. For now, they should aim for level 50. Let's go with that. Tamiko agreed. Shuu told her not to say it like that. Deep inside, Shuu swore to himself that no matter how long it took, he was going to reach the surface. If he was being honest, the trauma from meeting the Wraith would remain for a while. Even so, he had to keep on going, together with Tamiko. Suddenly, Tamiko called out to him and recalled that he wanted to get married, right? Shuu answered that if he got the chance, then maybe. Tamiko fidgeted, admitting that unlike her, Abe Shuu was smooth, so he was not really her type. After saying that, she glanced at him. She turned her back again and said that his personality was not bad. Shuu was serious and would take care of his family. She stopped again and glanced at him, then continued, saying that if he insisted and if there were no other good male partners, she would not mind marrying him. Without hesitation, Shuu answered that it was impossible because Tamiko was a squirrel after all. Hearing that, Tamiko sent a powerful blow to his face. Meanwhile, somewhere else, it was not until the fifth host that the wandering parasite developed anything resembling an ego. The first host was a cockroach. Back then, she was not aware of her own existence. She only had an accumulation of the host's memories and a copy of its abilities. Furthermore, if the host was eaten or there was a living being near the host's dead body, she would transfer to that living being. It was not a conscious decision but rather instinctual. The fifth host was a wolf. Compared to her previous hosts, the brain volume was a lot bigger, so as a consequence, she had developed a consciousness. She could understand the world and her environment on her own. She was able to experience everything through her host. Food and water, natural enemies and brethren, children and territories, vegetation and caves, the darkness and the hard ground. Her own emotions and sensations. Hunger, anger, joy, thirst, fear, irritation, pain, sound, and smell. As a parasite at the time, she still had no intention or means to control her host's actions or thoughts. She lived in the host's shadow, experiencing everything it did. But one day, what she saw through the host's eyes made her grow exponentially as an ego. What she saw was a living being with little hair that resembled a monkey and ran on two legs. Before long, it was defeated and about to be crushed by the big white monkey that appeared. The host only cared about whether or not it could find any remains after the battle. The difference in power was made clear. Without an arm, only death was awaiting it. However, even without an arm, it resisted the monkey, frantically ending that existence. And like that, the living being escaped. The impact of what unfolded created a dazzling spark. It lit a clear and unmistakable emotion within her. It was beautiful. Then, before long, her host was dead. Again, she moved to a different one. Faced with death, the image of that living being fighting against that monkey without an arm was deeply etched into her memory. It's been 2.5 years since they met the Wraith. They are currently experiencing the third spring season, even though in this Otsuka metro station there are no seasons. After defeating another beast, Shuu immediately swallowed its sporangium. Then he calls out to Tamiko, announcing that it's finally here. They had achieved level 50. The two quickly made a high five. Shuu then suggested that they should go to the oasis before they go out hunting again. He wants to wash himself immediately. Tamiko covered her nose and commented that he smells so bad. While brushing their teeth, Shuu noticed that the unicorn is here again today. This creature with a wee bit of a chip on its pointy horn has been nicknamed Unio-san. It's been about a year since they have been able to come this close to it. As usual, he can't hear the unicorn's footsteps. He wondered if this is its fungal ability. He's sure it's the same deal with the Wraith as well. Without hesitation, Shuu greeted Unio-san good morning. However, it just ignored him. Shuu muttered a curse, saying it's still far away from opening up to him. Even though he has a feeling it's coming here when they are here. He can only think that it's some sort of pure maiden from one of those fantasy novels. Tamiko told him that she's also a maiden, and Shuu nodded in response. Suddenly, she boldly asked if he was a virgin. Shuu was surprised, and remarked that her mom shouldn't teach her daughter such useless words. Tamiko pressed for an answer, while Shuu immediately looked away and said, never mind, they should just go. Afterward, they went to another area. As he looks around, Shuu mentions that they snuck into the goblin area before, but to think there is a place like this here. Tamiko told him that it's the grass-covered ogre plains. Shuu silently recalls that the ogres are the leading species on this 50th floor of Otsuka Metro in terms of fighting and ability. Their toughness exceeds the Wraiths, and they are highly intelligent. They should proceed with caution. Right away, Shuu activated his 10th fungal ability, the sensory spores. Using the ability, the super small particles that are invisible to the naked eye are ejected from his body into the atmosphere. Once it sticks to something, he can sense its outline. At that moment, Shuu sensed that inside on the right, there is one beast on top of a pillar nest. He doesn't sense any other beasts. With that, Shuu decided that they will hunt it. Before jumping off from his shoulder, Tamiko reminded him not to squeak his guard down. The moment the beast spotted him, it immediately leapt down from the pillar and confronted Shuu. When Shuu saw the ape's face, he was stunned, thinking that it was somehow a good-looking ape. Tamiko cheered that the current Shuu can beat it. Suddenly, the ape released a deafening roar, prompting Shuu to activate his sixth fungal ability, the fungal filament hammer. He remarked internally that he was about to lose to a good-looking ape. Summoning his shield, Shuu shouted at the ape not to underestimate him before charging forward without hesitation. As his hammer struck the target, he questioned whether the attack had been effective. He noted in his thoughts that, however, these apes have very wide gaps between their attacks. So if he aims for that and continuously hits its body, just then, the ape retreated and activated its fungal ability as something sprouted from its finger before charging at him again. Tamiko quickly warned Shuu to be careful. The ape powered up. While waiting for the ape to reach him, Shuu thought that the creature was like a junkie. Before the ape's powerful fist could land, Shuu activated his ninth fungal ability, enhanced jump, dodging the strike before delivering a blow while descending. The ape panted heavily from the fierce battle, and Shuu noticed that it is pretty exhausted now, and Shuu wondered if he should go for a battle of attrition now. Suddenly, Tamiko called out to him and warned him that the others might be coming here. Hearing that, Shuu decided that he can't hold back, so he will go all out. He then activated his 12th fungal ability, the smoke screen ball, instantly filling the area with thick smoke that blocked all visibility. Using his sensory spores, Shuu located the ape's exact position and immediately activated enhanced jump, leaping toward it before swinging his fungal hammer with full force. Afterward, he vanished back into the smoke while the enraged ape searched blindly for him. Taking advantage of the confusion, Shuu repeatedly delivered powerful blows to its body until he finally defeated the ape beast. He apologized to the creature and said he will put him to rest now, before ending its life completely. Looking around, Shuu remarks that this is quite a nice sight. It's kind of a pity that they have to snatch away the nest. But it's the victor's right. He then noticed that Tamiko had surely grown up. Tamiko told him, but she's 8 years old now, so she was still in her growth period. She's still nowhere close to mom's level, but she thinks she's about as big as she was. She recalls that Tamiko's mother was actively hunting until she was 35 years old. He wonders if their years are counted the same as human years. Tamiko is leveling slower than him and only has 4 abilities. Shuu then called out to Tamiko, mentioning that little by little, they are able to hunt ogres, right? Tamiko confirmed that's right. Shuu added that they have become strong enough to win in this area if it's a one-on-one fight, right? Tamiko agreed. Shuu then suggested that he think they should challenge a boss at least once for now. He explained that right now, even if they don't win against the boss, they can try fighting it and collect all the information they can, and they should be strong enough to run away. Tamiko replied that she's sure that Shuu is currently just as strong as her mom's partner. Even so, her mom's partner did not win. So they should do that only after preparing some more. Shuu agreed, saying she's not wrong. But he insisted on the idea that after experiencing it once, it would serve as a measuring stick, and they would know what to work on. They have a way to protect themselves, and they have the fungal recovery abilities, so at the very least they won't die. Despite hearing those, Tamiko still hesitated. Shuu realized that she's feeling anxious. It's no wonder, because this is an opponent that her mother's party lost their lives to, after all. Silence filled between them. To ease the tension, Shuu tickled her belly. Tamiko complains that this is a serious conversation, so stop joking around, but just like before, she quickly submitted. Then she said she understood the logic behind his idea. However, she's got one condition. She will agree if they go for this floor's boss. Shuu reacted in surprise, realizing that there's a boss on this floor as well. Isn't this the first time he's hearing of this? Tamiko replied that, well, even if he says boss, that one is a stray metro beast. Afterwards, they headed to the boss area. Shuu was surprised to realize that there's a place like this as well. It seems like an underground waterway. He remarks that this is completely irrational, a metro flood that is. Tamiko informed him that it should be around here somewhere. She heard that it's the same level as her mom's partner. Shuu replied, so that means it's around his level. Then he wondered about the stray metro beast. Currently, Tamiko is level 28. Her abilities are enhanced hearing, fungal filament shell, level scouter, and super hardening front teeth. Then Abe Shuu is level 50. His abilities are regenerative fungal filament sword, fireball, fungal filament shield, recovery ball, fungal filament hammer, electric ball, fungal filament great shield, enhanced jump, sensory spores, fungal filament ball. Its effects is unknown. Then smoke screen balls and repellent spores against monsters. Tamiko explains that while it's supposed to be on an upper floor, it somehow wandered in here and cannot return because of the boss on the 49th floor. So it stayed here, became stronger, and now roams the place. Hearing that, Shuu mentioned that it sounds familiar. Tamiko continued, saying that its den is in the direction of the stairs. There's a possibility of encountering the boss if it tries to fly there. Shuu asked in surprise. Can it fly? Is it a bird? Tamiko denied, and was about to say something when all of a sudden a noise echoed nearby. Shuu quickly told Tamiko to hide until it's over. Behind him, a beast flew toward him at tremendous speed, and sensing its approach, Shuu immediately lowered himself while throwing filament balls that exploded upon colliding with the creature. However, the beast emerged completely unharmed. Shuu was shocked as he realized the creature had mimicked a rock, finally understanding that it was a gargoyle. The beast stared at him hungrily, and Shuu muttered how scary it was and thought that this guy is definitely strong. He urged himself to move, saying it's not the time for regrets, and immediately activated his 8th fungal ability, the fungal filament great shield. At that moment, the beast unleashed a powerful shockwave that forced Shuu to halt. Confused, he wondered what it was while complaining that his ears hurt. The beast then landed directly in front of him, leaving Shuu stunned as he realized that on top of a flying type, it's also fast and powerful. In addition, it has ultrasonic waves. Impairing someone with it, and then attacking seems to be its winning pattern. He immediately threw a smoke screen, causing thick smoke to spread throughout the area. As he concealed himself within the smoke, he thought that he needed to do something about those ultrasonic waves. Suddenly, he sensed killing intent approaching, and the beast attacked him with its sharp claws, though Shuu barely managed to dodge in time. In that instant, he finally understood that bats understand their environment by echolocation. Shuu gritted his teeth, realizing that he made his vision worse for nothing. While running to create distance, the beast unleashed another ultrasonic wave, causing Shuu to stop in pain as he covered his ears. He cursed internally, noticing that the creature was using the same pattern. However, the moment the beast rushed toward him to close the distance, Shuu instantly swung his sword, sending the gargoyle flying away from him instead. Shuu smirked, remarking that it was close, but the pattern is not going to work on him anymore. It was a right decision to use the recovery ball as an earplug. He noted in his thoughts that, however, that beast's skin is very hard, almost like a stone. If he doesn't put everything he got into his swing, he's not going to be able to reach its flesh. Keeping a distance is disadvantageous. He has to make this a close-ranged fight. With that in mind, Shuu activated his ability and leapt from wall to wall until he reached the beast in midair. The instant he attacked with his sword, the beast blocked it with its claw, shocking Shuu as his body fell back toward the ground. The beast launched another strike, but Shuu defended himself with his fungal shield, reminding himself that it was fungal filament after all. Using the wall as leverage, he pushed off once more and charged toward the creature, delivering a powerful blow to its stomach that sent it crashing to the ground. Without wasting any time, Shuu followed up with another attack using his electric ball. The moment it struck the beast, electricity surged through its body, electrocuting it. This was Shu's 7th fungal ability, electric ball. The moment its cocoon is broken, it discharges electricity. Shuu noted that even if it's damn hard, if it's affected by electricity, then there are gaps in its armor. Shuu landed beside the convulsing beast and swiftly severed its wings, thinking that with this, it couldn't fly anymore. Now all he has to do is just shave away at it like usual. However, his thoughts were interrupted when the electrified beast suddenly stood up again, its eyes fixed directly on him. The creature charged once more, and Shuu blocked it with his shield before slashing at it again, causing blood to burst from its torn flesh. Even so, the beast continued attacking relentlessly. Shuu was stunned that it still refused to go down. He continued striking it, severing its limbs one after another, unable to believe that this guy is still not done. Then, all of a sudden, the beast unleashed another ultrasonic wave attack. Shuu endured the pain caused by the deafening noise, and the moment it subsided, he immediately slammed his shield into the beast, staggering it briefly before using his sword to slice its body apart piece by piece, finally defeating it completely. After the intense battle, Shuu let out a deep breath. Tamiko called out to him, praising his efforts and saying that he had done an amazing job. Shuu replied that the beast was seriously strong, and it's not just attacks, but it was tenacious as well. Deep inside, however, Shuu felt despair as he reflected on how the beast was alone here, in a place full of enemies. Even so, it didn't want to die. It survived in this hellhole up until today. And if they hadn't come here today? Sensing his silence, Tamiko interrupted his thoughts, and Shuu gently stroked her head, reassuring her that it was nothing. He then suggested that they partake, and Tamiko asked if he meant its sporangium. After extracting the sporangiums from the beast's body, Shuu turned to her and said that they should be diligent and prepare for tomorrow's provision. Tamiko was amazed that he's facing forward, then said, but she will soon squeak to his head. Starting from the middle is a bit extreme. Shuu told her he saw it, even though it's only now. Tamiko asked what he meant. Shuu explained that what he meant was their expression of gratitude. They should be grateful for this one's life. Internally, Shuu admitted that he's aware of these selfish thoughts, but there's definitely something that he has gained from it. And the opponent to throw it all against exists on the upper floor.